Welcome to part 9 of this video series. Today we're going to be discussing mooring your small liveaboard boat. This includes docks, piers, mooring buoys, and in-locks. I just want to make a quick safety note about docking your boat. Any boat large enough to live on is also very heavy and does not stop at a dime. Never ever put any part of your body between the boat and a wall or a dock, a lesson many have learned the hard way. I am going to be doing another video completely on anchoring and anchoring techniques, so I won't be discussing that here today. But remember to subscribe so you'll know when that or any new videos in this series comes out. Okay, so first we're going to talk about mooring lines. There are all sorts of lines to choose from for all types of applications. There are transient lines and permanent lines, bow lines, stern lines, and spring lines. Although first let's talk about what types of lines. Technically just about any rope could work. However, having said that, you should only use proper nylon lines, and I'll tell you why. Nylon is stronger than a lot of other types, and it has quite a bit of stretch, which is very important to absorb the shocks a boat will go through. Lastly, a lot of ropes are not UV stabilized to quickly break down, lose strength, and break when left out in the sun. Now there's basically three types: 3-strand, braided, and mega braided. Mega braided is mainly used for very large ships and yachts, so I'm not going to talk about that today. 3-strand is the traditional style. It's more affordable, easier to splice, if you know how that is, and has the most stretch out of all the lines. Braided lines have about half the stretch of 3-strand lines. However, it's somewhat stronger and people have a tendency to like the look of it better. Now these lines come in traditional white and vivid colors. I did have a set of nice blue lines once. I had bought it at a local chandlery and it quickly faded. However, I've been told by others that they've had them and they've lasted a very long time. As for diameter, general rule of thumb is a boat up to 26 feet should use 3/8 of an inch, and anything between 26 and 32 feet should use 7/16 of an inch. Of course, if you're not comfortable with that, you can always go larger. Now, as far as length, bow lines should be between 2/3 and 1 full boat length. Stern lines should be 2/3 of a boat length, and spring lines should be 1 full boat length. The difference between transient and permanent lines is that permanent lines are usually a custom length, and when boats are moored in the same place, it constantly rubs on the same spot, causing wear. So they'll need to have some form of chafing protection over these spots. Also, quite often you'll see line snubbers attached to permanent lines. These help add stretch to the line to avoid shock. Another addition you might want to add to a permanent line is a shackle permanently attached to each end of a custom length of line, so you don't have to tie it onto the cleat on the dock. This way you can just quickly clip it on instead. Most people have a general understanding of what a bow and stern line is, but a lot don't know what spring lines are. A spring line is attached to the bow, stern, or both, and goes to a cleat near the center of the boat. The reason for this is it helps stop the boat from moving ahead or astern. Also, it works as a lever. If the boat tries to move astern against the stern spring line, it will force her stern in and her bow out, and vice versa with the bow spring line. It can also help with maneuvering and securing alongside. Okay, the next thing we need to talk about is fenders. Fenders are extremely important. They provide a cushion between your boat, the dock, wall, or another boat, and they prevent damage. There are so many different types of these. The most common today is the inflatable cylindrical type, but they come in many other forms. Some include flat fenders, transom fenders, rafting cushions, low freeboard fenders, V-shaped freedom fenders, and pontoon fenders. Each of these have a specific use, which I'll discuss quickly. Flat fenders are easier to store and don't roll about on the side of the hull. They come in modular or articulating and vinyl covered. However, I have heard stories of them not having the longest lifespan. Transom fenders lie horizontally across your transom or swim platform. These really help if you have to dock stern in. Low freeboard fenders are usually used for bass boats, ski boats, etc. They're not really for liveaboards. V-shaped freedom fenders are great if you're trying to tie up the pilings. The V keeps them from coming off the pilings. And pontoon fenders, I don't think I need to explain what kind of boat they're used for. One last thing we should talk about when it comes to fenders, and that's Fender Boards. Fender Boards can be purchased or you can simply make them yourselves. Personally, I don't need them when I'm at my home port, so I just make a set as I need them. For example, when I sail south, I would create a sacrificial pair to take with me. It used to be that when I would travel through the Erie Canal, the concrete in the locks had huge chunks missing that created holes big enough to swallow fenders. So I would take a 2x4 and hang it over my fenders, and by the time I was done, that awful concrete would have just about eaten through the board. Today the canal is much better, But there's still lots of places where the wall or whatever you're trying to tie up to is not even or straight enough to use regular fenders, and you're going to want to have fender boards for those. While we're on the subject of marine locks, I should mention that if you keep your boat at the exact same spot all the time, you would only need fenders and lines on one side. But if you're transient, you're going to want to have fenders and lines on all sides of your boat. Some locks, like here on the Rita Waterway, you attach to the side of the lock chamber, but others you're just basically drifting around inside the chamber, trying not to play bumper boats. Even on locks where you do attach to the lock wall or a floating dock, you rarely know which side you're going to be on ahead of time, and switching your fenders from side to side at the last minute really is just not practical. Lastly, we have to talk about permanent mooring buoys or bulls. A lot of marinas or municipalities will set these out. Normally, commercial mooring buoys are set in concrete with strong chains so you don't have to worry about them. People can put their own in. I've seen people use large slabs of concrete or old engine blocks. If you use something like an engine block, please make sure it's cleaned out first and not creating an oil slick on the water. Also, if you put a mooring buoy in, have a plan to remove it. Please don't leave it up to the local municipality to remove yours. Attaching to a buoy is fairly simple. If you're transient, you can just use a regular line and tie carefully onto it, although feeding the line through the eye of the buoy can be a challenge, especially if you have a lot of freeboard. If you use one on a regular basis, you're going to want a pendant. These can be left attached to the buoy if you own or rent it, or to your boat. If you leave it attached to the buoy, you'll need to have a float attached to it on the end that attaches to your boat. Floats are not a bad idea anyway, just in case you drop the whole thing in the water. The length of your pendant should be 2.5 to 3 times the height of your freeboard. They should be made of nylon and have some form of snubber to add even more stretch to stop the shock. On the ends, they should be spliced with thimbles and a strong, reliable shackle. A friend of mine who moored his boat in an area he didn't exactly trust ran a chain with padlock on each end beside his mooring pendant, so nobody could steal his boat. What might be helpful is there are boat hooks specifically designed to pick up mooring buoys and pendants. I haven't used one myself, but I can certainly see the advantages of it. Please only use mooring buoys that you either own or are paying for. Do not use other people's mooring boats. Not only is this very disrespectful, but you don't know the condition of the mooring buoy below the water, and you don't want it to break while you're using it. If you have any thoughts or ideas on this video, or any other videos in the series, please feel free to comment below. And thank you for watching today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe so you don't miss any future videos in the series. Thank you.